Hello, my name is Bridget McNulty. I am the co-founder of Sweet Life Diabetes Community, which is South Africa's largest online diabetes community, and I'm living with type 1 diabetes myself. Type 1 diabetes, in brief, affects about 10% of people with diabetes. That's the kind I have. You get suddenly very sick. It's a very dramatic diagnosis, usually, often diagnosed in children, and you immediately have to go into insulin injections. It's an autoimmune condition that's genetic, but not hereditary. So it's something in your genes, but you don't get it from your parents. Type 2 diabetes is strongly hereditary, so it often runs in families, and it's the other 90% of people with diabetes have type 2 diabetes. It's often called a lifestyle condition because it can be caused by the wrong kind of lifestyle. So that means carrying extra weight, especially around your tummy area, eating the wrong kind of food, eating junk food, too much sugar, fizzy drinks, fatty foods, and not exercising enough. What's amazing about type 2 diabetes is that if you are diagnosed early enough, you can reverse it. It's completely reversible. If you're diagnosed a little later, it's manageable with medication and lifestyle changes, sometimes just lifestyle changes. So if you lose extra weight and start exercising and change your diet, that can be enough to manage type 2 diabetes. Otherwise, you might need to take medication, which could be tablets or insulin. But it's a completely manageable condition. What's terrifying about type 2 diabetes in South Africa is that it is the #1 killer of women in South Africa. Stats says they released that in 2016. It should be headlines all over the country. And the reason it's the #1 killer is because of what this data showed that we got from Allegra, because 1 in 3 people has prediabetes. So that means there's risk for developing type 2 diabetes. And they were lucky enough to find out by going to get their blood sugar checked. What about all those who haven't got to get their blood sugar checked? So at the beginning of this year, the SA Demographic and Health Survey was released, and that said that actually up to 65% of South Africans could be in that pre-diabetic range, so at risk of developing type 2 diabetes. That means that 2 of 3 people, like if you're standing in a queue and you look to either side, 2 of the 3 of you are at risk of developing type 2 diabetes. If you're over 45 years old, you should be going for an annual diabetes screening. If you are overweight or obese, you should also be going for an annual diabetes screening because that puts you at much higher risk. And then the other risk factors, I'm going to run through them quickly, but I really encourage you to go and watch the videos because you can count off on your fingers how much of a risk you're at, and then know if you need to go for a diabetes screening. The other risk factors are if you're inactive, so not doing a lot of exercise, if you have high blood pressure, if you have high cholesterol, if you have a family history of diabetes, so if your relatives, aunts, uncles, cousins, brothers, sisters, family, parents, if any of them have diabetes, if you have a heart disease history, if you're a high-risk ethnic group, so that means Asian, Indian, or colored, diabetes particularly runs in those groups, and if you have either had diabetes during pregnancy or a baby over 4 kilograms, or polycystic ovarian syndrome. So if any of this sounds like you, I really want to encourage you to go for a diabetes screening. It really couldn't be simpler. You can go to your local clinic or pharmacy, you get a finger prick blood test, they tell you if you're at risk or not.